The sharp click of designer heels on marble echoed through the conference room as I watched Barbara Winters spill her third coffee of the morning onto the mahogany table. Her hands were shaking, actually trembling, as she stared at me standing in the doorway. Not in my gray cleaning uniform, in a tailored Armani suit with my CEO badge clipped to the lapel. "This is impossible," she whispered, her voice cracking. Behind her, Vice President Marcus Sterling's rehearsed welcome speech died in his throat. His face had gone the color of old newspaper. The temperature in that boardroom seemed to drop 20 degrees as recognition spread like a virus through the assembled executives. I watched Sarah Chen's perfectly maintained composure fracture in real time, her mouth opening and closing without sound, her manicured fingers crushing the presentation folder she'd been holding. 2 weeks. I'd spent 2 weeks pushing a cleaning cart through these halls while they treated me like I was invisible, worse than invisible, like I was something to be avoided, dismissed, erased. Every condescending comment, every dismissive gesture, every moment they'd revealed exactly who they were when they thought no one important was watching. And now they knew. The cleaning lady they'd barely bothered to acknowledge was about to dismantle everything they'd built on cruelty and arrogance. My name is Elena Hartwell. I'm 34, and I'm a corporate restructuring specialist with a Harvard MBA. This is the story of how I cleaned house, literally. The plan had started 3 months earlier in a very different boardroom. Chairman Robert Davies had slid a folder across his desk, his expression grim. "Global dynamics is dying from the inside," he'd said. "We've tried 3 CEOs in 2 years. Each one promised reform. Each one failed within months. The culture is toxic, but we can't figure out why the changes never stick." I'd opened the folder. The metrics were devastating. Turnover rates approaching 40%, discrimination lawsuits piling up, productivity in free fall. But what caught my attention were the exit interview quotes. Management creates an environment of fear. If you're not part of the inner circle, you don't exist. They don't see us as people? "You need someone on the inside," I'd said. "Someone they'd never suspect. Someone who can see how the system really operates when no one's performing for the new boss." That's how Elena Hartwell, incoming CEO, became Elena Martinez, evening cleaning staff. The transformation had been surprisingly easy. A different last name in the system, a gray uniform, my hair pulled back, glasses instead of contacts. I'd worked as a hotel housekeeper during college. I knew the rhythms, the invisibility of service work. What I hadn't anticipated was how completely people would erase you when they decided you didn't matter. My first night, Barbara had walked past me in the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, and shoved her empty coffee cup into my hands without breaking stride in her conversation. Not a word, not a glance, just the assumption that my hands existed to hold her garbage. Marcus had been worse. "Make sure you clean under the desks properly this time," he'd said, not looking up from his phone. "The last cleaning lady was fired for missing spots." The casual cruelty in his voice, the way he'd emphasized cleaning lady like it was a species designation rather than a job description. I documented everything. My phone, hidden in my cleaning cart, had recorded hours of conversations. The way Sarah had berated a junior employee until the young woman was crying in the bathroom. The way Marcus openly mocked the basement people who handled data entry. The way Barbara had told me not to let my kind be visible when important people were around. But the worst had been watching the pattern. The qualified employees of color stuck in entry-level positions, while mediocre white executives failed upward. The way women's ideas were dismissed in meetings, then presented by men an hour later. The systematic destruction of anyone who tried to challenge the status quo. I'd filled 3 notebooks with observations, created a database of incidents, built a comprehensive case that would be impossible to dismiss as one person's perspective, because I hadn't just been watching. I'd been experiencing exactly what hundreds of employees had tried to report for years. The breaking point had come 5 days before the scheduled board meeting. I'd been cleaning Marcus's office when he'd taken a call on speaker. "The new CEO arrives Monday," the voice had said. "Some Silicon Valley reformer who thinks they can fix everything." Marcus had laughed, actually laughed. "Give them a month. We've gotten rid of bigger threats than some tech hotshot. The system protects itself. It always does. That's when I'd known. This wasn't just about documenting problems. This was about completely dismantling a machine designed to protect itself by grinding up anyone who challenged it. So I'd moved up the timeline. Using my personal phone during a break, I called the chairman from outside the building. I'm ready to introduce myself. Monday's board meeting, the day I was supposed to officially arrive, but I'm doing it my way. Now, standing in that conference room with 20 executives staring at me in various stages of shock and horror, I felt the weight of every dismissed employee, every silenced complaint, every person who'd been made to feel invisible. "Good morning," I said, my voice cutting through the stunned silence. "I believe some of you know me as Elena from the cleaning crew. For the past 2 weeks, I've had the opportunity to observe this company from a unique perspective. Today, we're going to discuss what I learned." I walked to the head of the table, my heels clicking with each step. Barbara had started crying, black mascara streaking down her cheeks. Sarah looked like she might be sick. Marcus had gone very still, the way prey animals freeze when they realize they're being hunted. "Shall we begin with human resources?" I opened my laptop, connecting it to the presentation screen. "Barbara, your comments about my kind being visible were particularly illuminating." The first slide appeared, a comprehensive timeline of every discriminatory comment, every policy violation, every instance of harassment I'd witnessed or recorded. Barbara's face appeared in multiple video clips, each one more damning than the last. "This is from Tuesday," I narrated as one clip played. Barbara's voice filled the room. "We can't have your kind visible during important meetings. Stay in the back hallways until the executives leave." Barbara made a choking sound. I didn't mean." "You meant exactly what you said," I interrupted. "And you said it because you thought I didn't matter, that no one would care, that your position protected you from consequences." I turned to Marcus. "Or perhaps we should discuss those confidential merger proposals you were so concerned about me touching, the ones I'd already reviewed and rejected 3 weeks ago during my meetings with the board." His confident facade crumbled. But the board said. "The board hired me to assess why 3 previous CEOs failed to reform this company. They gave me carte blanche on methodology. I chose to start from the bottom because that's where the truth lives. And Marcus, your brilliant strategy for aggressive acquisition would have bankrupted 3 smaller companies and cost 4,000 jobs while padding your bonus structure." Sarah had recovered enough to attempt damage control. "Ms. Hartwell, I'm sure if we'd known. If you'd known I was the CEO, you would have performed. That's exactly the problem. You have a version of yourselves you show to people you respect and a completely different version for everyone else. The question is, which version is real?" I clicked to the next slide, the organizational chart with red lines through multiple executive positions. "These are terminations effective immediately. Barbara, your last day is today. Your severance package is contingent on signing an NDA and participating in an exit interview with our legal team." Barbara's crying intensified into gasping sobs. 2 board members led her from the room. "Marcus, your position as vice president is eliminated. Your responsibilities will be distributed among the junior analysts you've spent years belittling. You know, the basement people who actually understand the data you routinely ignored." Marcus's face had gone from gray to red. "You can't do this. My contract." "Your contract has a morality clause. We'll be in touch with specifics, but I'd recommend consulting with an attorney, a good one." Sarah raised her hand slightly like a student afraid to draw attention. "And me?" "You're being transferred to customer service. 6 months of direct interaction with the people you've been marketing to might provide valuable perspective. After that, we'll reassess." The next hour was systematic demolition. Every executive who'd made my 2 weeks miserable faced specific documented consequences. Every discriminatory practice was exposed and eliminated. Every systemic barrier was identified and addressed. But I also did something else. I pulled up files on 15 employees currently working in entry-level positions. Janet Coleman, I announced, currently working in maintenance. Master's degree in human resources, 8 years of experience, couldn't get past the initial screening because Barbara personally rejected every application from candidates who didn't fit the culture. Janet, you're our new HR director. Report Monday at 8 a.m. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. I continued through the list. Qualified, experienced professionals who'd been systematically kept out of positions they were overqualified for. These are the people you made invisible, I said to the remaining executives. These are the people you dismissed without a second thought. And these are the people who are going to rebuild this company while you figure out whether you're capable of change. Chairman Davies caught my eye from across the room and gave a single approving nod. The same measured gesture he'd given when I'd first proposed this unconventional approach 3 months ago. The days that followed were chaos. Executive resignations poured in, LinkedIn profiles were hastily updated, legal threats were made and quietly withdrawn when faced with my documentation. Marcus's attorneys attempted to negotiate around the morality clause, but after reviewing the documented evidence, they advised him to accept the termination without further contest. But something else happened. The silence that had permeated the lower floors began to lift. People started speaking up in meetings. Ideas that had been dismissed for years suddenly got heard. Innovation bloomed in spaces where fear had strangled it. Barbara sent desperate emails. I sincerely apologize for any misunderstandings during your observation period. My comments were taken out of context. I forwarded them to legal without response. She signed the NDA 3 days later in exchange for her severance package and left without further communication. Marcus tried sending expensive gifts, wine, chocolates, tickets to events. They all went into a box marked evidence of attempted manipulation in the legal department. Sarah, to her credit, actually showed up for her customer service training. I watched on the security feed as she took her first call, her expression shifting from horror to something like understanding as she heard directly how the company's policies affected real people. 1 month later, I stood in front of the entire staff, every employee from executive to maintenance, for a mandatory all-hands meeting. Many of you knew me as Elena, the cleaning lady, I began. Some of you were kind during those 2 weeks. Most of you didn't notice me at all. Today, we're going to discuss what that reveals about who we were and who we're going to become. I pulled up the organizational chart again. This time, the changes were broader. Effective immediately, every executive will spend 1 month working in an entry-level position. Consider it continuing education. You'll keep your salary, but you'll do the actual work. You'll experience the conditions you've created. You'll understand what invisibility feels like. The executives looked horrified. The lower-level employees looked stunned. Additionally, the executive floor is being converted to a collaborative workspace. Reserved parking is eliminated. Private offices are eliminated. If you need privacy for a meeting, you'll book a conference room like everyone else. I paused, letting that sink in. Salaries are being audited for equity. Promotions will be based on merit, not networking. Discriminatory behavior will result in immediate termination, regardless of position or tenure. And yes, cleaning staff will receive the same benefits as management because respect isn't determined by job description. The applause started slowly, then built into something that felt like hope. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. Employee satisfaction scores had risen by 60%. Turnover had dropped to single digits. Productivity had increased by 35%. Turns out people work better when they're not terrified or dismissed. I received an email from Barbara, now working as an entry-level HR assistant at a different company. Miss Hartwell, I never understood how much dignity mattered, how much small moments of respect or dismissal shaped everything. I'm different now. Thank you for forcing me to see. I forwarded it to Janet, our new HR director, with a note. Sometimes people can change. Worth watching. Marcus's story was different. He'd lasted 3 days in data entry before resigning. Last I heard, he was consulting for a company that valued his old-school approach. Some people prefer the comfort of familiar systems, even broken ones. But Sarah surprised everyone. She excelled in customer service, then moved into customer experience design. She'd published an article about learning empathy through forced perspective shift. She'd become an advocate for the very changes she'd initially resisted. The business magazines loved the story. The undercover CEO who cleaned house, literally, became a case study in corporate reform. They praised the innovative approach, the dramatic results, the bold restructuring, but they missed the real story. This wasn't about one CEO's clever strategy. This was about hundreds of employees who'd been invisible finally being seen. This was about dismantling systems that protected cruelty in the name of efficiency. This was about proving that respect isn't a luxury. It's the foundation everything else is built on. My cleaning cart still sits in my office, not on the executive floor because that doesn't exist anymore, but in the open workspace where anyone can reach me. It's a reminder that the view from the bottom revealed more truth than years of reports and presentations ever could. Last week, a new hire asked me about it. Why do you keep a cleaning cart in your office? I thought about Barbara's tears, Marcus's shock, Sarah's transformation, about Janet's master's degree finally being recognized, about all the people who'd been dismissed and were now thriving. It reminds me, I said, that the most important perspective sometimes comes from being invisible, and that real change doesn't come from the top down. It comes from understanding what it feels like at every level. She nodded, but I don't think she fully understood. Not yet. Maybe someday she'll be in a position where she needs to make a choice. Maintain a system that benefits her, or tear it down to build something better. When that moment comes, I hope she remembers the cleaning cart. I hope she remembers that every person she interacts with has a story, a skill set, a dignity that deserves recognition. I hope she remembers that real leadership isn't about protecting your position. It's about seeing people others have made invisible. Because that's the lesson those 2 weeks taught me. Not that people are cruel when they think no one's watching. I already knew that. But that they're also capable of change when forced to confront their own blindness, that systems can be broken and rebuilt, that respect, once demanded and enforced, can become culture. The company I inherited was dying. The company I built in its place is thriving. But more than that, it's becoming a place where people don't have to be invisible to survive. And sometimes, late at night when I'm the last one in the office, I push that cleaning cart down the empty hallways, remembering every dismissive comment, every moment of casual cruelty, every instance of erasure, but also remembering Janet's face when I offered her the HR director position, remembering the junior analyst's shock when they were given real responsibility, remembering Sarah's genuine transformation from tormentor to advocate. That's what makes the victory real. Not the executives I fired, but the people I elevated. Not the system I destroyed, but the one I built in its place. Not the revenge I took, but the respect I demanded. If you're reading this and feeling that knot in your stomach because someone at work makes you feel invisible, insignificant, or inferior, I see you. That feeling isn't paranoia. It's pattern recognition. Trust it. Document it. And know that systems that protect cruelty can be dismantled by people brave enough to demand better. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.